Good morning, guys and ladies and guys and ladies. I just gotta set up this other tripod right quick. How are we doing this morning? Let me take a moment to let people come in. Are there any settings? Yeah, we'll leave it there. So today, a little coffee real quick. This is one of my favorite coffee mugs. If you probably won't know a lot about me. I talk a lot about mental health. I use my own personal experience to kind of bring relatability and um, action to the topic. But a little thing about me, and quick little story before we get into the topic of the day, which is numbers don't lie, money and mental health, which is gonna definitely be a part one. But let me start this live on Instagram. But little quick story about Sara. And this is technically tied to mental health because my whole life is mental health, whether it's because I am helping other people and coaching other people, or if it's because I have to prioritize my own practice of taking care of myself. But quick story. So my favorite coffee cup, it says, y'all can see it there. It says Queen Bee. I never identified myself as a queen. And to be honest with you, in this culture of like, I see a lot of it as like a title and completely respect it. As in identifying as a queen, it just never felt comfortable to me until I saw this cup. But then there was also an experience before that. In my journey of, trying life out and experiencing life, I found myself, I love to travel. So I found myself traveling these past couple of years, and I landed in Egypt. So that's fun fact number one is I've been to Egypt. An amazing experience. And I had really no connection to Egypt prior to even visiting there. It was actually a friend of mine who she was the one who influenced me going there. And I was like, how did I not ever want to go here? For something like, I see the pyramids on the dollar bill or a pyramid on the dollar bill, but it never really I never fully connected with it. When I got there is when I really was like, oh, this whole royalty thing, like the queen, kings, like and pharaohs and all things, I resonated, I imprinted on one of the queens in Egyptian history, Queen Hatshepsut. And if you come into my small group, coaching group, I share a lot more. I actually do a whole segment on how this art piece that I have can expand and align and help improve people's mental health. But fun story. So yeah, that's the queen part of this cup, is that in the past couple of years, that's really what I embodied. I was like, you know what? I was reborn. I kind of attached myself from her Queen Hatshepsut storyline, and what she stood for was just who I was. And I was like, oh wow, she existed before me. I'm of course I'm not original, but I am unique. And so that's the queen part. The other part is the bees. So they're bumblebees, but I never really liked bumblebees before. If anything, I had reason to not want anything to do with them because I was stung on the tongue by a bee when I was younger. It flew into my soda and I drank it. And thankfully, I am not allergic to bees, but yeah, it wasn't pretty. But if you've ever heard the story of the bumblebee, so, not from the music sense, because there's a whole piece of story of the bumblebee, but the bumblebee is a physics anomaly. It's not supposed to fly. From the size of its body to the strength of its wings, doesn't make sense a lot of the times to be able to fly. And so when I learned that, it resonated so much with me because the story is that no one ever told it that it couldn't fly. And I was like, you know what? That's a thing. That's going to be a thing that I remember. It's deposited into my mind ever since then, to the point where I will show you. Well, I'm not sure these. It's kind of tight, but I have a tattoo of a bumblebee. I don't know if y'all can see it through, but a tattoo of a bumblebee because I have a not collage. What's it called? Bouquet of flowers that is on my shoulder that will eventually be like a whole art piece. But so yeah, the bumblebees are very important. Here's to saving the bees, not only just for the earth, but for mental health reasons. So let's get into today's topic I chose this topic because eventually it had to be talked about. Now, because this is a live, I'm going to do my best to give you guys an outline. There's a more in-depth, not only class and talk in my group, but we go through activities to get aligned with our relationship with money. And so when it comes to today's topic, I wanted to go over a couple of the highlights that in my career, so I've been a clinical social worker and working in the addictions population for the last 10 years. That number does not ever stop lying to me. And I'm like, 10 years? Yeah, about to be 10 years. I graduated in 2014 with my master's degree. So it's longer, but I wasn't working in the social work space after my bachelor's degree. That's actually when I went to prison, but that's a story for another time. And I was working in the prison, not that anyways, point being, for the last 10 years, I've noticed this trend with all the different types of clients. I've worked with clients in different settings, in residential and inpatient, different phases of their life. I've worked with professionals. I actually work with a lot with professionals. That's my main clientele at this point, healthcare professionals who struggle with how that relationship with self is initiating and into an addictive lifestyle. And so the relationship with money is probably one of the biggest components to mental health recovery. So I wanted to go over a couple of different points as to why that is, but also what can you do about it? How can you start to change this? That if you're not in the position to join my program and to get involved in the community and the group work to practice the skills to get on the track for a recovery program, then you can piece things together on your own because you have time. And that is the one thing that's on your side. Time is on your side. So let's dive in, right? So money. If anyone is here, I think I've got one or a couple people here. Drop in the comments, when I say what's your relationship with money, what's the first thing that comes to mind? And I say relationship with money very intentionally. Part of it is because I'm a therapist and we have relationships with everything. Therapy is about reestablishing relationships within our lives, relationship with self first and foremost, because that is everything else that goes into what you do, how you do it, and how you regain a balance within, whether it's a chemical balance, hormone imbalance, or just an emotional balance, again, within, working on your mental health. So what is your relationship with money, right? Whether it can be past, I can talk about my past, or it can be present. Where are you guys at? Where you want to be when it comes to your relationship with money? For me, and because I'm going to talk, so we're talking about mental health, but because I lead with my story and transformation, is that my health journey was actually started as a financial journey. I'm a social worker. Yes, I got myself into private practice. I'm successful in the sense that I'm comfortable with. But if you compare me to Bill Gates, nah, I'm pretty damn poor. But that's why we don't compare. Or if you compare, you're going to contrast. I do different things. I have different values, and I just have a different way of doing things. So when I took a look at I was taking a look at my health. I was probably at that point, I wasn't at my highest weight, but I was above 350. I can tell you that because the last year before I made my decision, I was 350 plus. My highest weight was 389. I have no problem sharing that now. But that number used to cripple me. It used to convince me that I was not going to be able to last. I was not going to be able, and I was burnout, and I believed that. So I had to take a hard look at like, okay, let me cut back here. Let me cut costs. So money helps create experiences for me. Absolutely. Whether it's experiences of going out and doing things, and that's an output of money, or sometimes I'm going to start tie this back to how I relate to that is it created money, and looking at my relationship with money created an experience that opened me up to making entirely like numbers that I would never have been able to see if I limited myself with how I was doing things before. So when I started looking at my money, if you guys know anything about my story, I should have owned stock in Dunkin' Donuts. I have cut back a lot, but that's partly because I was like, I messed up. I didn't invest in Dunkin' Donuts when I was actually investing in Dunkin' Donuts. I was spending a lot of money there. It was probably, this was, 5 years ago. And I was spending $7 a day minimum because I was stuck in the cycle of convenience because I was working so much, trying to make more money. I had just moved to a bigger city, so it was a parallel financial move for me. Cost of living was higher than where I was. My bills, I was overspending based off of what I had. And so I was automatically needing to spend more money because I was more tired. I was doing more, so therefore I had to spend more for convenience out of not just having a structured lifestyle. So that, I mean, now anything you go eat out, like you're spending a minimum of like $10. Like I go to Starbucks, or I'll even go to Dunkin' now, and it's like you're still spending. I use the reward system. That can be a whole addiction in itself, is navigating sales and reward systems. But our relationship with money is at the crux of everything when it comes to our relationship with self. So, because it's really why it's our biggest resource. We live in a capitalist society. You can't change that. It works pretty well for some people, and we all know what people don't want to give up, and that's money. So what comes into that is like, how does this one resource that we're all, lusting after, I'm going to use that word, we're all pursuing this as the kind of the focal point of our existence? And how is it also the one thing that works against us when it comes to mental health? Now, this is not everyone. I am speaking to the people who have, I want to say a poor relationship with money, but I know that for myself, I came from a relationship with money that was based in a scarcity mindset. I grew up in a middle class family. I was privileged. I had more privilege than other people, but I was around a lot of people that had more money than I did. So there's this kind of constant reflection, and this was before social media, mind you. Like, I'm still young for the significant mental health issues that we have but like when social media came it completely blew up. I'm not blaming it, because it's a good resource. That's where I pretty much learned everything in terms of transformation from the fitness and the nutrition side of things. But from the perception of looking at other people's money, it's still running rampant as a complete facade for a lot of people, that like people are claiming. I'm not going to talk about anyone else's money. I'm actually going to digress and talk about more. You guys all have to talk about and reflect on your own individual relationship with money. When you think about, do you know how to budget? Budgets are not life, I can tell you that, but they're a very good starting point. Do you have the ability to save money? Where is your money going, right? So in my group, we unpack a lot of that. We pretty much, in consideration to like how much work that I did, with my relationship with money, we scratch the surface in that group, because really the goal of my program is to talk more about the things that get you started, and then the maintenance and the accountability to sustain comes over time with having like the group as a community in the background. So you start to have this exposure to the more appropriate and effective ways to build wealth, to build your health, and to be able to sustain your mental health and start to bring that energy back. And speaking of energy, what is a dollar bill? Now, I can't claim that this is original to, then I made this up, but money is just a manifestation of the energy that we put towards something. That's why it goes all of these ebbs and flows in the recession, is that it puts value. You can create pieces of paper to become visuals of the energy that you can't see and the effort that you put towards something. So if you, and I'm not going to say it to devalue it, because it is quite valuable, value money. Like if you see a penny on the ground, don't just walk over it. That does have some value. And I know there's a lot of shifting financial situations right now, not only just from people's individual, but from like a federal and government standpoint. But I'm not going to go into the higher tier, more macro places, because each individual, how you start to address your mental health, money and your relationship with money can be a really good grounding part, because you're not going to be able to build if you do not have a stable foundation. So being able to really get and take a true inventory of what it is that you have, what you have going out versus what you have coming in, is the same methodology that we take a look at in therapy when it comes to self-care, when it comes to the things that you have in your relationships. How much effort and energy you put into relationships and how much do you get back? Those are like the less quantifiable things. But money that's why I chose money and numbers don't lie, is because it is actually a really good resource to be able to see and to measure growth. Now, that's the difference between money versus resources, and why perspective is really important here is that you have to find a balance between how much value you put on a dollar bill versus how much value you put in having a resource. Money is a resource. It leads to experiences. There may be more worth to spend more here if you're obtaining more in resources. So when you're taking a look at and reflecting on your own relationship with money, because I'm going to challenge you to do so, is like take some time, especially, I'm going to double challenge you. If you can sit down and journal about it, not just one and done, to sit down and journal a couple of times, not because journaling and then also budgeting, like that's such an emotional response for people. So I'll use my story again. When I first started that financial, like I took that inventory, I was giving Dunkin' Donuts, $30, $40 a week. That's $160 a month just for breakfast. Just for breakfast. That I had to take a good hard look. It was super uncomfortable. It's still kind of uncomfortable these days. And I've pushed past a lot of different levels when it comes to money, because I started here. And I'm giving y'all the thing that I did, the approach that I took. And because it provided a very solid foundation so when I took hits, because I've taken losses in business and I have personally spent money that I probably shouldn't have and made poor investments. And when we do those, that's the only way that we're going to learn. But you don't have to take losses before, you can make gains, but you do have to start. And that is, I'm going to go into that second point of what is money actually representing. I just got done saying money represents that manifestation of energy we put towards something. So whether that be you showing up for the employer that you work for, that is valuable because that role needs to be filled in order for the job to be complete. But what about your time? And this is energy. Energy is a little different than time. I'm not going to put them in the same thing, but they go hand in hand. So this is probably, I guess, the easiest way for encourage people to visualize this is like working for someone else versus being an entrepreneur. There is a lot of pressure being an entrepreneur, taking it all on your own and having to, whether you want to call it hustle, whether you want to call it grind, whether you call it work, whether you want to call it entrepreneurship, that there is money is all on you. Like, you have to sell, you have to make connections, you have to be able to do the work and put the energy forth to get more money because you don't have a consistent stream. And I think that's a point of intersection where I could go on a tangent really quickly, but I want to stay focused on time. What is the value of your time? And right now, I think a lot of people were, if I look at like the whole, what's it called? Quiet quitting, and people realizing the value of their time. I may have a different perspective here because I don't think quiet quitting has anything supportive for people's mental health. I understand people are burnt out and that you need a break, but it doesn't, you taking a step back and not showing up, it actually provides more pressure sometimes, because when you're a part of an organization, you're part of a system, that weight that you just stop doing because you just quiet quitted. I'm more critiquing the quiet quitting part versus the like taking a break part. The quiet quitting part is a passive way of addressing your needs. So you're not actually saying, hey, I need some time off and it's really important or else I'm not going to be able to go further, because that puts pressure on the rest of the system. And then that's an investment that's going to come back to you. That's going to make it harder. And a lot of people I see block out the reality that it's going to piss people off. It's going to make things harder for people. And that's energy that I trust and believe that people know how to emotionally regulate more than they do, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of evidence about it. So then it's increasing the amount of internal conflict within organizations. It's increasing the stress levels because everyone is like, you can feel that energy just from someone not being like knowing their limit and the amount of resources that they have energetically to take care of themselves. Probably an unpopular opinion, but I've literally seen it. A lot of my clients are part of a very, is industrial the right word? It's a very large educational and professional setting that employs a lot of people, that has all like very big systems that are not the healthiest. That's why they're deteriorating, and it is a lot of pressure, but that doesn't mean to just fall back out of the system that you're still attached to, because the attachment is still going to use energy, because you know in your mind that you're still experiencing negative energy from other people because you're not able to stand up. Now, I may not be speaking to everyone here, but I know I'm speaking to some people because I've heard it behind closed doors from a variable amount of people that go through a very similar thing, because you can't just block out reality. People try really hard. Oh, I don't care about things. Like, I don't care. I'm going to care less. There's a process to that. I do believe that you can fully detach from caring, but it's not healthy long term the way people do it with compartmentalization. Compartmentalization is a solid skill, but it's a skill. It's a practice. So what goes into that is really important, because if you just like, I don't care, I'm hands off again, you're going to get pulled right back into something, or you're either going to get let go, or you're going to have to leave and find something different, and you're bringing the pattern with you. So let me bring this back to money. I got a little bit of a tangent there. So we started talking about time, and this is where it gets more the relationship with money for a lot of people. Actually, I don't think I finished saying more about like what happens when you take a look at your relationship with money. For a lot of people, it can be a lot of pressure, and in varying degrees. For me, the more debt I had, the harder it was to look. The bigger the number that I was in a deficit, the harder it was for me to sit down and do my budget and make sure I had my bills paid. Because naturally, as humans, not just me, as humans, we are built to be all or nothing. That's why survival and stress responses are black and white. It's fight or flight. So when you look at being in debt, and if you are an educated person, if you are pretty much a human, being in debt is a pretty constant thing. Like this, and that's not a bad thing, but most people perceive it as a bad thing because it's debt. Like, you're not supposed to be in debt. Yes, by all means, get yourself out of debt. But realistically, this country is made to thrive off of people being in debt. To leverage debt is to leverage in growth. That's the only way. So when it comes to mental health, the first time, like if anyone is starting, right, if you've been having trouble getting started, I would look at your relationship with money as a good starting point, because your stress response is probably more than likely more tolerable because you're doing a standard like routine of things. When most people, even if you don't know how to budget, even if your relationship with money is completely shit, you have a more tolerable stress response because you have to sit down by yourself to take a look at things, and you can practice emotional regulation without having to be completely burdened by the bigger stress responses. Now, if you are one of those people who has a complete, I don't want to say explosive, but like aversion to money, then that's something I wouldn't encourage you to do on your own. And surprisingly, at least if you come to me as a therapist, I'm going to talk with you and work with you on your relationship with money. I have a budget within my program, and technically, if y'all let me change the link here on the page. If you go to my app, my budget is in my resource library for free for y'all. And you can break down, I have it outlined for the most part to give you a step-by-step. It does the math for you, because that was pretty much the most stressful part for me, was doing the math, but then also staying in the moment. People, when we become stressed because we're looking at something, then we're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to pay this off. All those thought distortions start to come back in and bombard you, whether they're messages from your parents, whether it's because you grew up not having any financial support at all, or whether it is because you just have no appreciation for what money is. I have clients who've come from very wealthy backgrounds who have a horrible relationship with money because they never had to learn about it. So yes, people with privilege, people who don't have this quote unquote, this is a comparison that doesn't need to happen just for this example, is that who have had a silver spoon or has had more opportunity than people, mental health does not discriminate against those people. And because the relationship with money, people be spending money and have no appreciation or value to what it represents. And then it starts to cause division between our relationships and in our connections with people. And it gets really freaking messy. Okay. So when you sit down and you take a look at your relationship with money, it is a huge indicator of how you can start not only taking care of your health, because there's likely going to be a stress response. And I know for me, it was like, I can easily get worried. And I have, I'm at this phase in my life where business didn't happen for me and I took a hit financially. So part of entrepreneurship is you have to know how to consolidate resources. You have to know how to scale back. If not, things are going to fail and you're going to end up probably giving it up. And so if you do not know how to be consistent with your relationship with money, those numbers are going to work against you. Those numbers become the trigger. And I can guarantee you that you're not going to be able to get too far without, if you're still having a reaction to seeing certain numbers and the value that's placed on that in society. So I wanted to make this a little bit more health related. I think it is health related so far because we've been talking about the stress response. We've been talking about the importance of how you regulate that. And so if anyone needs a reminder from this, the box breathing uh, method, inhale through your nose for 3, hold for 4, exhale through your mouth for 5. I kind of just did it on there. That is a little bit of it's like a, was it not EKG, is when is it they paddle you, like, if your heart stops, then you get a little paddle, right? So that box breathing technique is like a little mini intentional paddle that you can give yourself to kind of reset your central nervous system based off of your breath, because that is usually the first thing that gets dysregulated when we become stressed. So if you're sitting in front of those numbers and you're looking at like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough money, these creditors are calling me, the bank is gonna not refinance. What am I trying to say? Take my house, they're gonna take my car, they're gonna do this. If your work, that is your opportunity to prioritize your mental health there, because if that's happening already, there's probably not much you can do to get out of it. You just have to figure out how you move through it. And that is the secret about not only just working on your mental health, is you have to figure out how you problem solve. It's really uncomfortable. I really wish it could be better. There are some more effective ways. I'll say this is that hypnotherapy could be a good resource for you. A lot of meditation, that's free. But then if you're having difficulty being consistent, paying attention, you have a diagnosis that is, preventing and causing barriers for you to get started, then yeah, money still becomes this big issue. So if you are one of those people who really you can't afford mental health treatment, you can't, which I'm going to take this time to be like, I've kind of not reduced. I have made that as less of an excuse for people, because not only just with this talk right now, because you can use that box breathing, you can calm your central nervous system. You're still moving forward, even if you don't calm your central nervous system. You're still able to get through, and you can prioritize your mental health in different ways. But my program is priced specifically because that it's not one big investment. I have an option where you can put the big investment in there and get the information quicker and shorten the time it takes you to get better. But the other thing, like if you're not spending money, the only other thing that you have is time. And time is always going to be on your side, except when you're stressed the F out and you haven't stopped to breathe and bring yourself back to the present moment. And so that's why this talk not only is going to be a part 1, because I'm also just talking to y'all and I'm going to need to get visuals, which will come. But that's just the subscription model. Like if you're that person that can't afford therapy, you don't have health insurance, even if you have health insurance, you have a high deductible. This is partly why I designed this way, is because I was that person. I was the professional that couldn't go to therapy because it couldn't even make sense in my budget to put money towards that, because I had gotten myself into such a precarious financial situation, coping with eating out all the time, shopping to make myself feel better, because I had to dress up the outside because the inside felt like caca. I'm trying to stop cussing as much, that's what I came up with. So when we do more, we spend more. And then there's this culture of like, I don't know if anyone's heard this, is that you have to spend money to make money. There is some truth to that, but that is not the whole truth. You do have to put an investment toward making money, but time is just as valuable as money. Time. So I'm going to tie this back into my story and I'm going to show you the numbers that don't lie. These were actually numbers that I just figured out only like a few weeks ago. But 5 years ago, when I said, I got to do something different, my health, I'm at an all-time high. That number was not lying to me. The number on the scale is not going to, sometimes it can lie depending on the scale, but it is not going to lie to you that you are in an unhealthy place of being. The BMI, although it is very non-inclusive to different body types, different races, different statures, it is also not going to lie. It's going to be designed that you are not in a healthy place, that and take the comparison off of it. You're not healthy if you're not able to physically breathe because you've got so much weight on you. If you are having all these secondary consequences and diagnoses. So those numbers are not there to lie, but they're not the end all be all. They are not the thing, like the BMI does not define. I'm still considered morbidly obese based off of the number, but it does not lie to me anymore because I stopped lying to myself. I stopped reacting to the number and I said, look, what is this number actually trying to tell me? What is this number supposed to mean for me? And I made it work for me. So when I made that decision, I made an investment. This was when I started learning. I didn't know about investments. I had heard about them, but no one sat down and taught me about them. I have a lot of privilege in life, but financial literacy was not one of them. And to a certain extent, actually, I did technically have a personal financial management class in high school. I grew up in the Northeast, very wealthy place. So our schools were just structured differently and our curriculums were different. They did value financial literacy up when you had a lot of money and a lot of white people. That's just the reality. I only graduated with 8 Black people in my high school. So I technically did have an advantage, but I did not actually learn much. I knew I was able to balance a checkbook and I was able to get some kind of idea of what to do, what not to do. I understood the concept of don't overspend. But then you throw into the other lessons about money. What did I see? My dad was a small business owner. My mom was self-employed and, she worked in lower paying self-employment, or also did she had multiple jobs. She spent more time chasing money. My dad spent more time chasing money. We were well off to a certain extent, but I wasn't living in a mansion. I literally lived down the road from someone I went to high school with that lived in a mansion. I was in my childhood home was 1950s, but because of the area that I grew up in, I was like, oh, I'm around all this money. I never learned to actually value it. So what happened? I spent a lot of time making up in later in life, because what's the first thing that I did when I got money? I spent it. I worked to spend money. And that's where I was part of that culture. And when it wasn't until I learned the value of how to take time and I could extend, whether it's extend to money or when I tied it to my health, I said, I'm not going to go all in actually. I'm not going to hire a trainer. I'm not going to get a job. Excuse me. I'm not going to get a gym membership until I can actually take a look at what's taking my money. What was taking my money at that point? Dunkin' Donuts, eating out, going out with friends, because I was trying to make myself feel better. Because I was so tired, because I wasn't sleeping correctly. I wasn't eating foods that actually gave me more fuel for the long run. So those numbers weren't lying. I saw my debt go higher and higher, and I saw the scale go higher and higher. I saw the mask that I had to wear to be like, oh yeah, I'm great, I'm fine. Yes, I'm the funny person. I just kept making a joke of it. And that joke in turn started to and the people close to me, I didn't joke as much. I would talk a little bit about things, but those jokes started to be, once I started making them about myself, and it was self-deprecating humor, I started making them about other people. My sarcasm and my wit that now I had to retrain myself, that's communication 101 in my course, is that sarcasm, if you're not careful, is going to end up hurting other people because it continuously hurts you. So I've had to relearn how to do that. Point being, coming back to this money thing, is that the higher the debt went, the higher my stress level went. The more lying that I did to myself to say that oh yeah, I'm good. I wasn't good. No one likes to feel that way. So there's this one time I was asked to speak at an event that they were like, it was trying to bridge the gap between mental health between parents and their children. And I used the metaphor of money because parents, after a certain period of time, because if you're a parent at this point, you are come from a generation where financial literacy was not prioritized. And so you likely have a crappy relationship with money that you're chasing something that doesn't feel like you have a moment to stop, doesn't feel like you have a moment to do something different. And if you continuously chase that, then you're going to continuously adding more debt in the long run and less time in your life, less time with your kids. And I know this is an age-old thing, and I'm not trying to guilt anyone. I'm just trying to put something here for someone who needs to hear it, that when you prioritize your health over money for the short term, you extend the investment for the long term. So when I actually started applying investments and financial literacy, because I had to start, I was like, okay, I got to figure out how to get more money. So it's like, all right, I'm just not going to eat out anymore. Dunkin's only once a week. And I started cutting back, and I started buying groceries. And then I started seeing my process of like, oh, some of my groceries are going bad. I'm not actually valuing the things that I invested in at the grocery store. So that's a place to lose money. And I started looking, okay, well, why am I not using this food? And it's because someone kept asking me to go out to eat, and I kept saying yes. And I had to start saying no. And so it snowballed out of that. It snowballed into me realizing that when I said a combination of no, it wasn't all no, but it wasn't all yes anymore, that I started addressing my codependency issues. I started doing the uncomfortable thing because I sat down and I took a look at the outline. Now, I wasn't super rigid with it. I have been on, and it's going to be depending on your pay cycle, because at that time, I've only get paid once a month, and I had to know how much money, where it was going to go, and like, okay, and keep this number in my mind, that so I had some bounds and to stay within. So when you're looking at your relationship with money, there are some variables in questions that you have to ask yourself is like, what is your pay cycle? How do you, not only just what's your reaction towards money, but how does money make you feel when you get it? And how does money make you feel when you don't have it? So there's all work that you can do. You don't have to go to therapy to do that, because that's why I'm talking to y'all right now, is and now this is the type of therapist I am. And I will say, as a supervisor to any of my supervisees, I encourage them to have and bring up these conversations. In school, they never told me to do that. I just started realizing that in the and I mean this with the utmost respect to anyone that struggles with addiction watching this, but in the quote unquote bottom of the barrel type of issue that people stigmatize in this country, which is addiction and mental health, the relationship with money was one of the primary issues. Relationship with money and relationship with time. To me, a lot of the times they're the same thing, but you do have to separate them at first because they're not the same thing. So if I'm not saying that you need to put a number on my clinical rate of that is the value of my time is one number that dictates how I maneuver, but it's not a fixed number. I can change that. It's not because I devalue my time. It's because I value service more than money. I value helping and supporting people understand and overcoming more than just receiving numbers in my bank account or dollar bills in my hand. I did not always, because I was trained to see like, I need to get stacks. I need to stack bills. I need to have this. I need to have surplus, because I was perceiving abundance of like, well, I'm going to have more and more, but I was holding on to it with scarcity, because I was truly operating out of a scarcity mindset. And that's because I was not addressing my stress response and my trauma response around money, because I didn't get as much time with my parents about money. I didn't get as many things because of money. As privileged as I was, I didn't get everything that I asked for. I still don't get everything that I ask for, partly because I don't ask for much anymore. But what I'm asking of people is, when you start to understand your relationship with money and you start to value your time, the investment that you make into your health is exponential. So let me tell you one more number, because I learned this. It's actually on TikTok. This is why social media can be helpful. Hold on, let me find the number here. Okay, so let's take a look at the other numbers when it comes to health that people like to avoid, is calories. You do have to have an understanding of calorie counting, but I do not encourage it long term. It is a short term understanding. It's a lesson. But so for 1 pound of fat, so if you've never seen that visual, which I wish I had one here with me, but maybe an investment for another time, is 1 pound of fat. There's usually, it's 5 pounds of fat, that's that big yellow glob that they've shown you. But for 1 pound of fat, that's 3,500 calorie surplus. So you have 3,500 calories that you've overeaten to gain 1 pound. Okay. If you numericize that into a dollar amount, this is what put this just in perspective for me like 3 weeks ago when I learned this. And it instilled such a different mindset for me, even after all the work I've done on my relationship with money, and not to be intimidated by it, not to avoid it. This flipped it for me. I've lost, 170 pounds is the most weight that I lost. I've fluctuated back now, but that was from my highest to my lowest weight was 170 pounds. 3,500 calories to 170 pounds. Y'all want to do the math, or I can tell you. It's $595,000 that I made by losing 170 pounds. Now, that's not money I see, but $595,000 that, based off of me spending 5 years, if you want to even say, like, break it down, because I haven't done that math actually. Let me get my calculator out. $595,000. It took me technically 4 years to lose that, because this past 5 year I've been, so I'm going to divide that by 4. $148,750. That 1 year, I essentially made that much money with just the amount of weight that I lost. So when I heard that, I was actually really anxious about money at the time. I was sitting in front of my computer and I got distracted, and I ended up on TikTok. And I came across this woman going live. I really loved her energy. She was very captivating in that. And oh, I totally overlooked the chat. My bad. I heard that, and I don't think she said, either she said to numericize the amount of weight or the amount of calories, but I may not have seen that in my bank account, y'all, but that did something for my freaking spirit. Because I was sitting there being anxious and been like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough. And I'm playing with that scarcity mindset again that I know that I have overcome once. And sometimes you dabble in it again. It's only human. You know, you can't become fully invincible unless you can train your brain that way, but you're going to compensate somewhere else. That's my belief system. But that when I'm sitting here looking at the amount of debt that I'm in, because I took a risk with business and I tried to, level up, right? And I did in a lot of ways, but just by numericizing the amount of weight that I lost, $595,000, I just gave myself from losing that weight. I have extended my ability to make more money because I've added life to my life. I've added time to my life. So 3,500 calories equals 1 pound of excess weight. So if you've lost weight, multiply 3,500 by the amount of weight that you've lost, and that's the amount of money that you essentially will have coming to you in the value of you prioritizing your health and your mental health over making more money. That's my argument, and that's what I'm sticking to, because I don't believe Like, I knew when I first started, and I had to operate out of a belief system of just lying to myself. And I was like, no, you have to make the investment. You have to be healthier. And it wasn't until I actually was, successful and truly believed that I did the right thing of prioritizing my health first over like leveling up in business, did I get the perspective that I've made way more money, but that I don't see, that I don't get to go spend because I prioritized my health in with my work. I didn't go all in. Like I told you, I didn't go all in on just losing weight. I didn't hire a trainer. I had to build the interdependence and the mental fortitude and the resilience over those 4 years of trying to do it my way, because that was the only way that I was going to, I knew, having watched other people struggle with addiction, whether it be substance or food addiction specifically, give up because they didn't have the intrinsic motivation or the individual accountability to make sure that they could keep going if someone wasn't there to do it with them. And that's why my mission is so based in interdependence and helping people use the accountability of either myself or the community that I have and the group that I have to get started, and also rewire your brain at the same time to know that you can sustain on your own, because you have to address the thought barriers in your inside your head to address anxiety, to overcome the stress response. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but because at each phase of your life and when you level up, when you go to a different level to make more money, you're going to have more responsibility. You're going to have to get used to the lifestyle of what it takes to be able to manage making more money. And when I went for that, I learned a very valuable lesson that it's worth it. It's worth it to level up, but it's also, you got to do it a certain way. And it has to start with the foundation of that relationship with money, because if not, you're not going to have any checks and balances. You're just going to continuously spend money, and it's not going to make you feel any better. So, that is the first part of Numbers Don't Lie, money and mental health. And so if you guys want to circle back, comment on, any of the points that I made, and, addressing your relationship with money, take it step by step. I've already said before, I have my app. So if I have a couple of different types of budgets, and then also if you are interested in having that support to not only address your mental health, but relationship with money is part of my program. I have my subscription model fully launched at this point, to take on people who want to do the work, but you can't necessarily make an all-in investment. You can't hire one of those like high class, make all these like 6-figure income coaches because they ask you to spend, $4,000 on them. I'm not asking you to spend $4,000 on me by any means. Like, I'm asking you to make a small investment for yourself because you have to. You have to make a financial investment for yourself and for your health, because if not, you won't value it. It can't be completely for free. Even though I did low cost for my life, if it's not money, it's going to take time. I opted for the time because I was figuring it out on my own, and that's just the way that I chose to do it. If you do not want to do it that way, that's why I'm here, and I have all those lessons laid out and to help you navigate how life is going to continue to go. Because as soon as you make that decision to prioritize your health and balancing everything you have, it's going to get a little harder, because the universe, you're breaking the pattern, you're breaking the cycle, and you're going against the current. And I'm prepared for that because I've done that with a lot of people. I've also seen it from, like, anytime you make a change for the better, it is always hard at first, because the universe is going to send you the test to make sure you're actually going to have the fortitude to keep going. So, I have a couple comments here. Let me see. This is for me. I'm going too fast now. A few days because I can feel my mind will be clearer if I'm comfortable, healthier to take better decisions. Yes. So the speed, I think I did another live a couple of weeks ago about thinking, there's a lot of things about thinking, but the rate of your thoughts, how fast they're going, is an indicator of sometimes how much money you'll spend, because you're more likely to do more, but it's also going to make you feel like you don't have enough time. And when you don't feel like you have enough time, guess what you end up doing to ground yourself? It's usually you end up spending kind of money, because you're like, oh, I don't have enough time to do that. Let me just buy for convenience. I don't have enough time to cook. Or I don't have enough energy to cook because you're tired. You pay for convenience. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just stating a fact. At least it was a fact for me. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a fact for someone else out there, is that things are so convenient because the time that we feel like we don't have is directly linked to how fast our thoughts are moving. So, this was let me get some water here. Well, I think for a good part one, that was a good part one, excuse me. And I look forward to seeing any comments, questions. If you guys have any questions about the budget spreadsheet in my app, please let me know, because it is more of a template. And then actually putting information into the template and putting the data in there, which is your financial information, is challenging. And that's where it's like there's an individual session, or I have in my group coaching, we will go over all of that. And so that way we can all share the experience. And sometimes you won't necessarily disclose your information, but being around shared energy and having me as a prompt and a guide also helps manage that stress response, so you can actually get through the process. Because the thing is that you start to avoid money, you start to avoid budgeting and seeing it outside of your head. That's the one of the biggest contributing factors to your mental health declining. You're going to graduate to a diagnosis. Your brain is trying to hey, we're trying to off-put this stress and this information. So you have to get through the practice and the stress response and the regulation in order for it to not get worse, because then that is what you're going to graduate to, it being more severe and over time. So thank you guys so much for your contributions and participating. Please check out the app. It's there for you. And then also, if you have any questions, please let me know. And I look forward to next week. I don't remember the topic, but I will announce it as soon as I get it up. But you guys have a great weekend. I think it's July 4th. It's Independence Day. So enjoy your long holiday. And you guys be safe and have a great time.